Thank you for tuning in to TFO4's virtual presentation. My name is Rachel, and you'll be hearing from Molly, Mishka, and Alyssa soon. Today, we're going to be telling the story of how we overcame small talk through doing a cross-cultural analysis. Let's dive in. We began by wanting to do a cross-cultural analysis between the women of Peru and Westminster. We wanted to compare our roles and values with their roles and values. We had a set of questions that quickly connected us with the women we interviewed. When we got back home, we realized that we were having a lot of big talk conversations with all of these women. What's big talk, you ask? Let me show you. Big talk is a term coined by Kalina Silverman. Please now watch the video. The video link is in the comments. You only have to listen from the 5-minute mark to about 6:04. Of course, if you choose to listen to the whole thing, we aren't stopping you. It's a great video. What we realized was that through this cross-cultural analysis, we were actually getting to know the women we interviewed. We were hearing their stories, we were skipping the small talk and getting to the big talk. And in doing so, we began learning that big talk allows us to share and learn about all of these different mixed experiences that women have, and that we seem to be more open to big talk conversations when traveling. And lastly, as a result of these big talk conversations, we began feeling more empathy. Part of our cross-cultural analysis, of course, is we had to analyze the women from Westminster. We decided that we wanted to continue the big talk with them. Mishka will talk more about this later on. Now, let's head to Molly, who's going to dive deeper into our story from Peru.
As you might be thinking, you too probably got to engage in some big talk while being in Peru. Going to Peru gave us permission to do more with our conversations. No longer were we interacting among the same crowds of people with the same interests, same goals, and same dreams. We were put into a place that made us uncomfortable. Some of us were around people we had never met before. Many of us were going to a place we had never been before, and we had to adapt to get the most out of ourselves, the experience, and the people we met. Talking was no longer something we could do to fill the time, because all we had was time. Time to dig in and say more than a weekend update walking from class to class. Time to sit and listen and not worry about interjecting our own issues that we needed to get off our chest. We had the time to actively listen and to lean into ideas that take intention. Intention in questions and listening and responding to facilitate conversations that would answer our pressing questions and teach us things about how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. That was a big motivation behind the questions we asked ourselves, each other, and our interviewees, and something we would later come to know as big talk. So, we asked, who are we? Who are women? We proposed questions that we are even overfaced to answer. What does it mean to be a respected woman? When did you become a woman? What advice do you have to give to the future generation of women? We sat with interviewees from China, California, Great Britain, Peru, and many from the Las Piedras. Some we were able to get to know and become friends with before asking them these daunting questions. Others, we had to jump right into the interview. So, given the unique circumstances, we optimized small talk and asked our interviewees questions to make them comfortable enough to be vulnerable in answering these bigger questions. We asked questions like, what food do you like to cook? What did you help your mom with growing up? Where are you from? Our assigned researcher and friend at LPAC, Clemencia, facilitated the transition we would make from this small talk to the big talk of big questions and big ideas. She translated our questions into Spanish for us and navigated the big conversations we wanted to have with a culture different from ours. Because of her, we were able to talk to a chef, Iziar, who spends weeks at a time cooking for researchers at LPAC, leaving her kids at home under the care of her own mom. She also works tirelessly to support the dreams of her boyfriend, who is also a chef, while balancing her own of starting her own healthy food restaurant that offers vegan baked goods. We talked to a mother, sister, and shop owner in the small community of Lucerna named Liz, who is very affectionate to her son and advocates to her sister that she can do anything she dreams of. We also were able to speak with one of our commanders-in-chief on the trip, Liz, who helped start a nonprofit and is always forthcoming with the lessons she has learned in her life. We talked to Star, a student from China who came to spend 3 months in the Peruvian Amazon, Hannah, a commanding journalist, Flor Quispe, younger sister of Liz from Lucerna, and Clemencia herself. We listened to things that a simple encounter from thanking Yizar for our food or grabbing a cold drink from Liz never would have presented us. And there was so much we were able to learn from digging into the deeper big talk, as you'll next hear from Alyssa.
Thanks, Molly. So now specifically talking about our Peru interviews, here are four biggest key takeaways: the similarities, the cultural inspiration, forgetting the small talk, and our overarching themes. So similarities, we had set forth before going on our trip what we thought our answers to the interview questions would be. And a lot of them were completely different than things that we would have said here. However, when we were able to analyze the answers, we realized that they are more similar than we ever could have imagined. And the similarities range from things like family to upbringing and just to general values and beliefs, and a ton more. Our cultural inspiration came from the idea that our group just felt really inspired to explore more cultures because it broke down a lot of expectations and stereotypes that we already had set out. Forgetting the small talk stemmed from our first interview to our last interview, just because we could see the difference that the women would open up to us more when we were asking bigger questions rather than just asking the smaller demographic questions. So throughout our interview process, our questions changed a little bit. Just with the help of Clemencia, we were able to focus in more on the questions that were going to get the answers that we wanted, which were more big picture themes rather than small details. So our overarching themes that we were able to take away from these were things like staying positive no matter what situation you're given, connecting to family and the community, and believing in yourself no matter what. And one of the biggest quotes that we took away from our Peruvian interviews were that "I can'ts don't exist."
This next part of the presentation comes as a result of a mutual realization that big talk is not something we wanted to leave in Peru, but rather something we wanted to take home with us. As Rachel mentioned in an earlier slide, we seem to be more willing and open to have big talk kind of conversations while we're traveling, but what about while we're at home? Now, as Molly mentioned a little bit earlier, in Peru, we did have the time and the space to have these conversations because we had nothing but time. But at home, when we're surrounded by people we're more familiar with and the spaces we're so used to navigating, what happens to big talk? Well, we decided that once we got home, we wanted to continue doing big talk and implement it in a way that really honors all the lessons we learned and all the experiences and interactions we had while in Peru. So while Alyssa was highlighting the experiences we had interviewing women in the Peruvian Amazon and the ways in which that led us to big talk, I will be contrasting that in the ways that we were led to big talk through our experiences with women in the United States and our experiences really sitting down with them, taking the time to actively listen, as Molly mentioned earlier, and exchanging those quick updates for more meaningful conversations, and as we now know, what we're calling big talk. As soon as we got home, we knew we wanted to skip right past all the small talk and ask the big questions, starting with asking women, about themselves, about the women around them, what they thought the stereotypes about women were, and what they thought it really meant to be a woman, and this is what we found. Alarmingly, a lot of the results about stereotypes about women were not positive ones. A staggering majority of them included things like being overly emotional, being needy, being weak, being soft, and countless other things that paint women in an inferior light to men. But it seems there may be a hidden strength about womankind that might not be apparent at first glance. When we ask these same women to look beyond the stereotypes and express what they felt it truly means to be a woman, an entirely new page was turned, and words like strong, leader, resilient, intelligent, independent, flooded our notepads almost immediately. We discovered that while being a woman can be a shared experience to some extent, the experience of being a woman is so varied and so widespread and is so unique from one woman to the next. Factors that can affect a woman's experience of being a woman include everything from socioeconomic status, religion, race, family background, and so many other things. From woman to woman, here are a couple of things that were said during our Big Talk conversations to help women navigate their experiences. Be who you are unapologetically. Ignore the labels. Women can do anything. Don't follow your heart, follow your plan. Do not let society, friends, or family dictate how you move through the world. Stay true to your values, even if they change. Through these Big Talk conversations, we realize that a lot of these are addressing the huge issue that women are faced with every single day, which are the unrealistic expectations and standards placed on them and their roles in society, which comes full circle to what we actually set out to study from the very beginning. So a lot of these are telling women how to navigate those standards and how not to place so much emphasis on what others think and feel they should be, and place more emphasis on who they really are and what they value. And I think the From Women to Women segment is actually really important because I think if you look at the language that we actually got back, things like be who you are unapologetically, don't follow your heart, follow your plan, and stay true to your values really demonstrates where women are coming from and the oppression and the double standards that we have faced. And I think that this was a really important segment to get to what's actually in the minds of women, the perspectives that they're coming from, in order to understand that and come from a place of understanding and a place of really being able to put yourself in women's shoes, and not only as a man but as another woman who has coming from a different experience and a different background. So I think this is a really important segment in driving our Big Talk segment, and I think it actually gave us more or less the results that we were hoping for. I think that we can all agree that Big Talk is something that we find really important, but something that's going to require, quote unquote, getting your hands dirty at some point or another. Because I think the whole point of Big Talk is that we do have to give parts of ourselves, and it's a give and take between two people or two or more people, where you are getting vulnerable and you're sharing parts of your story, and you're getting past those things that maybe matter a little bit less, like how's the weather, how are your classes going, and diving deep into actually understanding the minds and the hearts of the people around us. And I think a lot of times that vulnerability can be difficult, but I think that if we approach it with the mindset of these things can create connections and bonds and unity, not even just between women, but between everyone, then I think we can start to understand how valuable it truly is as an art and as a practice. And again, the art of communication is something that can be developed over time. While the skill of communication can be worked on, the willingness of communication has to already be there. So you already have to want to have these kinds of conversations. You already have to have the desire. That's something that we can't really teach you, but only can encourage. But the skill of actually communicating properly and communicating well and learning how to ask questions in a way that invites people to give you answers and invites people to open up about themselves and what they actually think and feel, that's something that can actually be taught and worked on. In doing so, we can really begin to step over the societal hurdle of small talk and meaningless conversation and really start to kick in gear what actually matters: deep connection, conversations with people around us, starting to get into people's heads and connect with them on a deeper level. If we allow it to, Big Talk could really change our lives.
Let's recap. We started our cross-cultural experience and realized who needs small talk. Skip it and move on to Big Talk. By asking those hard questions, we got some pretty amazing answers and learned a lot. Then we did it again, back home, and got some big results and learned even more. So we encourage you now to go out and have Big Talk. Get to know people's stories. You don't have to travel to learn about culture, stereotypes, roles, or values. Just get to know the people around you. Ask big questions and see where it takes you. TFO4 thanks you again for tuning in virtually.